when you're in this situation, you know that only he, not friends, not family, there's no one else that could take that weight off of your shoulders. And that's when I think most people start to find that relationship with God.
To be able to be the father, you have to heal to be the person they need you to be. Because they didn't ask to be here. You brought them into the world. It's your responsibility.
It's okay not to have your family as the people that you have to lean on or call, or that are checking in on you. Allow your friends to fill in that gap.
Healing things that I didn't even know were hurt.
Would you say in this season brought up those things that you didn't know?
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. It feels counterintuitive, but the way I believe you are strong is by being vulnerable.
When my son was born, life should have been filled with celebrations. But just days into fatherhood, we were hit with the news that would change everything in my life. My wife was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and 9 months later, she was gone. I didn't have time to fall apart. I had to carry the grief, the responsibility, and the weight of becoming everything my son would have ever needed. This episode is for every man who knows what it's like to hold it all together on the outside while barely holding it together in the inside. This is Legacy Talks, the man you must become. And today's episode is called The Weight We Carry. So let's welcome my guest today, a man who understands what it means to be leaned on and what it takes to stay standing while holding it all together. Everybody, I want to welcome my guest, Dean, to the podcast. This is not just my guest. This is my brother. This is my friend that I think these conversations we've been having for years now. And I'm just excited to be able to bring them to a platform to be able to help other people really have the preparation and planning of what it takes to stay standing when they're carrying the weight. Because one thing I do know about you, you've carried some weight. So Dean, how you doing today?
I'm great, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things before we jump into this, and I think the backstory of how we met is interesting, and we can get into that. But I know that for us and the people that are listening and watching, they want us to go deep. And I want to go deep because that's where we never lived on the surface. We always went deep. But before we get started and I jump into just actually this first section, I want to say something to you. And I know what you're going to say, but I'm still going to say it. And we're diving right in, everybody. So I want to start off by saying that I am sorry. And I think that there is no amount of apologies that I could ever probably give, because as we will go through this episode, we will talk and dabble into more about your story and with your wife and your daughter. But what you were carrying in a season with Cynthia, I had no clue. And I beat myself up sometimes when I'm sitting by myself because I actually had to carry what you had to carry. And I didn't know the weight of what it was that you actually had to carry, which is funny because so we created this legacy deck and the cards where you pull cards out and they're for men to ask yourself questions. And one of the questions were, if somebody had to carry what you had to carry for a day, what would that be if they had to walk in your shoes? And I never walked in your shoes until now. And I think that there was, and I think I look back at it more of, there was maybe, and this is to my own ignorance, a lack of empathy, a lack of understanding, maybe a lack of compassion, but that's just because I did not have forums like this to really understand what it was that a person was carrying. So I just want to say that I'm sorry and I apologize and I love you and I appreciate you.
You know what I'm going to say, which is there's no need for that. I think that nobody can know things until, you and I talk about this all the time. 99.9% of people have to learn things the hardest way possible, right? Yeah. You can't know it until you experience it. And in the reality of things, you just have to give yourself grace in that. always. Everybody's involved with their own stuff, right? And it shouldn't be that way, but it's the way the world works these days, unfortunately.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I try to give myself grace still in my situation. And it's tough. And it's just weird because I should be giving myself more grace than other people give me. And I struggle with that part of it. But diving into the first part and the first question that I actually want to ask you is defining the weight. So when you were carrying the weight, and man, because I was there when she was diagnosed, you got the news, you have your daughter, and you had to carry, when that weight came onto your shoulders, what did that mean personally to you as far as now, like in life, what is the weight that you have to carry? Because you thinking about what if could ever happen, and then it happens, and then that weight is dropped in your lap. What did that weight mean to you personally?
Honestly, it's so funny. I didn't think of it. I wish I had carried more of the weight, because I feel like she had to carry so much weight. Just the weight of going through a diagnosis like that, constantly, and you probably know this as well, constantly having to fight for the right treatments. And it was a full-time job for her to keep herself alive, right? And then for me, I wish, if I have a regret, I wish I could have taken more, right? We were in this place together where financially we were struggling. We had this business that was struggling. We were kind of struggling with the move and all these things. And truthfully, all I could think of is I want to carry more. Like, how can I take more? How can I do more? What can I do? And I felt helpless at times, to be honest with you.
And now, like I said, because I have this context, I think in hindsight, I'm looking back at it where I wish I could have carried more of the weight too. I wish I would have. And it's the crazy thing is, we're saying we wish we would have carried more weight, but we were working, household fathers, talking to doctors, treatments, taking care of, and we were still like, we wish we could have carried more weight. And I think that for me, that weight that I wish I could have carried more is because I didn't know how much time I actually had. But in my heart, I was believing that I had more time than I did. So knowing that, I would have carried all of the weight, even if it broke me. But then the caveat to that is I had to balance the weight because I had a newborn baby. So I think that I definitely understand, and it definitely resonates when it does come to wanting to carry more weight. But I don't think if I wouldn't have gone through this situation, I would have been like, well, why do you want to? Well, you're already carrying a lot, but I understand. And I'm like, I completely understand where if we could have taken, we would have taken it all. So I guess here's actually,
Jason, I just want to say, if I could have taken the sickness from her, I would have.
So literally last night when I was laying on the couch and because I couldn't sleep, and I said that why couldn't it have been me to carry that burden and to leave her here to be able to care for our son and to continue the work that she was doing. Every single time we would go to the hospital after every brain surgery, I would say the same thing. And I think that's maybe where the heaviness came in more is because like we felt helpless because all we wanted to do is carry everything. We wanted to remove all of that and put it on us and allow us to carry that, which is when they talk about men and protector and providers, these are some of the things that men don't maybe communicate to their spouses or to their wife about. This is as a man that is a provider and protector, we are willing to embody everything that can shield you from ever having to feel anything, including the sickness. And wherever that sickness takes us, we're willing to accept that. So I think that is something which is, I would say, is definitely a note for people who are going through this experience. Like, don't feel like you're alone when it comes to wanting to carry everything, because you're not. I think there's a hard part of trying to find the balance of carrying everything, because one string, everything could fall apart. And there's other people that are relying on us. But just know that for people that are listening, that weight that you're carrying of wanting to carry it all, you're not alone. And that is something that is definitely a natural feeling for people that are in the situation that are, especially when you're dealing with your spouse. That is the biggest weight that we would take any day of the week. So
the thing is, it is that natural instinct as a man. We've been conditioned to take that on. And I think it can also go the wrong way, where we try and take it all on by ourselves and we're not building community. We're not leaning into other folks that could be there for us. And it's not possible to take all that weight. It's not possible. We believe it in our minds, and it's part of how we could fail as men, because we think we can carry it all, and we just can't.
I think that, but who's told us that? I guess that's just what society has told us, that we have to carry it all. So we don't know what that means to not have to carry it all. I guess that goes back to thinking about when I was asked that question, who's the man you have to become if and when the situation happens? And he was like, you didn't ask yourself that question beforehand, so now you have to become that person. And I didn't have the framework, or I didn't have anyone to ask about how to actually prepare myself to say, listen. And he would actually, which is the crazy thing, he would actually tell me, and this was in the height of it, he would always tell me, he would say, hey, I understand how you're feeling, but your feelings aren't real. They're not real. So you got to deal with the situation in front of you, because that's real. So I get how you're feeling, but that's not real. The situation you're dealing with, that's as real as it gets. And because I was like, man, I don't feel like I can carry this, and I don't feel like, and he was like, but you have to. And going through that, that's when, and I will thank my brother Eldridge for really walking me through that part, because I think that you're right. I didn't know how, especially with absence of a father and not having known how to really carry that amount of weight to that level. So that's interesting how that affects us, how society has affected us in some of the most hardest moments of our life, that if you're not mindful of, that could actually break and destroy you. So what would you teach the world about being strong? And if you had to speak to somebody in this situation, because since we're talking about being strong, like how it shapes your actions, and through your actions and identity, if you had to speak to somebody in this situation, what words would you have for them about actions and identity and being strong in a moment like this? And whether that's wife, child, grandma, parent, in that absence of their loss, how would you communicate that to them?
It feels counterintuitive, but the way I believe you are strong is by being vulnerable. And what I mean by that is talking to people, asking for help when you need help, not pretending that you have it all when you don't. Being honest, telling people how you feel. These are the things that I think, again, conditioned the way we are as men, we avoid that. And I think it might be our greatest weakness or threat to ourselves, is that we, if we're in trouble, we don't say it.
Yep.
If we're drowning, we don't look for a rope, right?
Yep.
We think we're going to paddle our way out of it. So that's, to me, the thing that I've found in the last few years mainly, is that the vulnerability is my greatest strength. When I can be honest with myself and with the people around me, I'm stronger.
Yeah. And I think that being honest with yourself, I think that that's good. I think that to maybe piggyback on that is, you are forced to be honest with yourself in these moments, because the person that is showing up as your representative, it separates you from your truth, and how you start to communicate with other people is not actually your authentic self of how you're actually feeling. So you don't actually get the help that you actually need. And I think that you can't allow, and it's two different types of strongs, because when they talk about identity, your identity in being a father, your identity in being a provider, your identity in being a husband, this identity, it's almost like, it's like Iron Man. You have to be, so as the husband, you got to be Iron Man. And Iron Man can take on these aliens and these extraterrestrial people coming in and trying to take over the world. But when the what if happens, you need to have the Infinity Stones. Like, because that Iron Man and the power that you have to possess to carry that weight is completely different from just the Iron Man who shows up in a suit. But even in that setting, he didn't understand that weight that he actually had to carry when he had to put on that glove. And he knew that that weight is what needed to be carried in order to solve what was going on around him. But he was honest and truthful with the outcome of that situation. And I think that the identity of us being just the husband provider, I'm speaking from personal experience, that the husband provider, father, best friend, like that person and who you have to become in this season are going to be completely two different people. And the preparation to become that person are just through the conversations we have to start having with ourselves now. Because I could tell you, I didn't have those conversations until I was deep in it. And then I had to start having those conversations. So I guess when it comes to pressure and presence, who really checks on you and how do you respond when they do?
You mean checking on how I'm doing?
Yeah.
Well, you're one of the people, I think, for sure, that'll check in just out of the blue. I have a few close people and I don't think you need a lot, but you need a few people that are genuinely concerned with you, right? Who are invested in you as a human, the chosen family. A lot of them aren't family for me. They're chosen family.
Sure.
That's who I have. And I'm getting better at, I should say, asking or checking in with people or calling people when I know I need to check in on myself now. But for a lot of time, I think I put up with such a good facade that people just were like, oh, he's okay. Right?
Yeah.
So maybe they didn't check in on me, especially when I was, when we were doing the cafe, you're always on, right? You're always performing because you have to create an experience for people when they come into your space. And it isn't, hey, I'm suffering. Do you want to talk about it with me? It's, hey, it's all about them, right? So I think, especially during that time, we were right in the middle of that cafe project. Cynthia was diagnosed and it didn't matter how I felt. The show had to go on, right? I had to continue to make people feel like everything was okay. So I think people just didn't check in on me because they assumed that the show was real.
So when was the moment where you couldn't hide the pain anymore?
After it was over. There was multiple things going on. I always think of like the ocean comes and hits you, that wave comes and then you get knocked down and then there's another wave right behind it that's bigger and then another wave. So it was a few things in a row that hit us. And this was like, this diagnosis came in the middle of it all, right? On top of it all. So.
Because what year was this?
It was 2023. So it happened in 23, trying to do my math. It happened at the end of 23 that we got the diagnosis or middle of 23. So she was going through treatment pretty quickly. So by the end of 23, she was in treatment. I'm trying to get my years right. I'm sorry. I don't remember the exact years. I'd have to look back. The last few years have been a little bit of a blur, but we were in year 2 of the cafe. I'll say that. When she was diagnosed, my partners were still there. And then the partners were slowly leaving, jumping ship because we weren't making it. And then she went through treatment. And then at the end of that, she got better. She's cancer free. And then she actually ended up, by the end of the cafe, the last few months, she ended up working with me at the cafe, which is the weirdest thing. So that whole time, I feel like barely anybody knew. And so that's why I say there's no reason for you to apologize. I probably didn't talk about it much because we were just trying to stay up.
Man, I guess I just thought that, I don't know why I think the timeline was different on that. Because she was going through it at the same time that Asia was going through it.
What year was that? I guess it was sooner than that.
Because Ocean was born in 2023. So she was diagnosed like 2 weeks after. So that's when that started. And I think my whole thoughts or purpose on this was really just for people that are going through something similar. I think that it's okay not to have your family as the people that you have to lean on or call or that are checking in on you. Don't take that energy and direct it towards them because you have an expectation of what they're supposed to be doing. Allow your friends to fill in that gap. Because the people in that season that you're in, like every moment, there's going to be a person that is supposed to be in that season at that time. And I can tell you that I thought that there was supposed to be this person in my season the whole time. And I'll tell you, like, listen, the crazy thing is we were at my wife's funeral, and me and my mom have a strange relationship that hopefully we continue to just work on. But I thought that in a moment like this, like, my mom is supposed to be the person who's supposed to be there for in these hard times. Something happened between my brother and my sister, and my mom had her own idea or narrative of how she thought things were supposed to be. And she left the day after the funeral, which the next day was my son's 1-year-old birthday. I didn't talk to her for 7 months. She didn't call me. She didn't check in on me. She didn't see how I was doing. And the whole time I'm thinking that while I'm carrying all of this pressure, because I just look at it from my perspective of my kid, like, if my kid went through what I was going through, and even now, I got my daughter, I tell her, I said, listen, just come here. I couldn't imagine that. And I think that that really shaped the thought of who you think that is supposed to be checking in on you versus who does check in on you. And then the ones that do check in on you, pour into those people and allow them to be that foundation in that season, because you never know who you're going to need in that season. So
you and I have talked about this before, that saying, blood is thicker than water.
yeah, I was actually thinking about that. Are you the one that told me about that?
I only learned it recently. I've always used it as blood is thicker than water, meaning like family is more important than anybody outside the family. And it actually means the opposite. The original saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, which literally means that when you struggle together and you bleed together, that bond is stronger than the bond of birth. And it changed my whole thinking on it, because I've always had my family. I love my family, but they're not perfect. There's a lot of dysfunction and, a lot of trauma and all these things. So I moved 3,000 miles away from them for a reason. And the people I met along the way who became my chosen family, some of which you are siblings to me now, right? That I never had. Then it all made sense when I heard that the real idea behind that. It's like one of those things that people use. I love that.
I was literally sitting here thinking, like, who told me that? And I was gonna try to say it, and I was like, wait, I don't remember the whole, but that was good. That was good.
I hope I got it right. You might have to look it up, but it's paraphrased pretty close.
And listen, and even if you didn't, that's Dean's version. So
that's my version.
Yeah, that's Dean's version. That's the Deanster version of it. So I guess when you are in a situation like this, how did you learn to manage the pressure without collapsing under it? Specifically when you're dealing with the sickness of someone that means more than the entire world to you.
I don't have an answer for that. And I'll tell you why. And this is where you and I talk about this as well. I'm being held up by him, right? This is when God steps in and it's like, and you may not feel it. The most religious person, but I have faith, right? And I have this, I am a believer, right? And that's why I'm a believer, because every time like I get in these situations, it's like, you ever see those videos where somebody drives through a train stop and it just misses their car, like by that, maybe even clips the back bumper, but they make it through, right? And you're like, whoa, how did that happen? And that's what I feel like sometimes. I get out of these situations, I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize I was in such danger, that things were so dire in that moment. And then I make it through and I know where that comes from, right? And I feel like, I was completely, not just from all the things I mentioned before, I was completely dissociated, right? I wasn't even there in some moments, but somehow kept moving. And I can only put it to that.
And once again, I know this is an echo, but I understand. I'm telling you, I understand. And, because people, it's the same thing, which I think it really, like, in loss, everyone knows God. Because you either don't believe in him or you do believe in him, but you know him. So the choice of what we choose to do is always our free will, and he's given it to us. But I think when that weight becomes so heavy, and he says that to give me your burdens or give me your yoke and take my yoke, because my yoke is lighter. So this brings me to like an actual story about, so when me and my wife were actually in, man, it was just crazy. We were in LA, and before we left LA, we had said that, and that's why you got to conversations that you're having. We actually said we want to walk out what it means to the words of the Bible. We want to live it. Like we want to walk it out. And when I tell you, I have lived some books of this Bible, but because the thing is, you can't take the highs and you can't not take the highs and not take the lows. But I think that the one thing that I like how you said, like even what you just said, he has to carry it, because if he doesn't, it will crush us. And even if you don't know, and this is why I believe he's such a good father, is because he will take that burden and take that yoke. Just like any father, when he sees you're struggling, he will remove things to be able to carry that for you. And we're looking at like when you're in this situation, you know that only he, not friends, not family, not, there's no one else that could take that weight off of your shoulders. And when you feel like that is lifted, it gives you, that's when you're like, it has to be him. And that's when I think most people start to find that relationship with God in that moment of pressure. And for me personally, obviously, you know that as a believer, Jesus was my cornerstone and foundation. I mean, the talks and things that he would talk to me about and the weight that I would have to give him, because people would always say, you know, with all you have going on, like, I don't understand, like, which is crazy because people will think that you're, like you said, and you said this, people think that you are better than you are because of what you are not displaying on the outside. But for me, Jesus was the one that was holding my insides together. But people wanted me to be walking up the street in a bathrobe with bunny slippers, with a cigarette hanging out my mouth, with a coffee mug with whiskey. Like that was the expectation that people wanted me, that they thought that I should, how I would look in this short amount of time. But they don't understand my relationship with God and the weight that he took off of my shoulders for me. Like he took that weight off of my shoulders, because I could tell you that in that moment, I felt that I was going to be crushed. So I think that that is, that's good. That is.
And sometimes you can't see it until you're past it. You don't even realize.
Absolutely.
For me, I didn't it's been 2.5 years since we got the all clear. It's been a little over a year since the cafe is done, that project. And I'm just starting to like look back and be able to realize where I was. It was, like I said, it was parts of me were just dissociating entirely. Like, oh, I can't even deal with this part right now because I got all this to do. And so now I look back and I can actually pick it apart and realize how much I was being held and how much I was accomplishing and how much I was holding, because I couldn't even take stock in it at the time.
So would you say that you started your healing process?
Yeah, for sure. Healing things that I didn't even know were hurt, healing.
Would you say in this season brought up those things that you didn't know?
Yeah, no, for sure. One of the things that's and you'll get, well, you know this well. One of the things that's a reflection of you as a man is your relationships with other people, meaning especially with your children. And I realized in the middle of all this that I wasn't right with, like, her and I weren't in the best place. And a lot of it was because of me, because I hadn't healed some things that were from before, that were handed to me from my father, my mother, whatever, the people around me that raised me, that were my role models. Mm. Yeah. So, I wasn't right with her, and being in that situation made that more pronounced, right? And I realized I had to heal some things in me that had been passed down, right? And I knew it a little bit before, but it became acute in this situation because now you're getting this reflection back, and you're having this static with a person who is, by the way, a mini me, right? Who pushes all my buttons, and you realize that you have to fix some stuff in yourself to be able to be a father. You have to heal to be the person they need you to be, because they didn't ask to be here. You brought them into the world. It's your responsibility. So until you just said that, I don't think I realized that was like the trigger point for me for that. But Cynthia always had more capacity to like referee and hold all that because that's what mothers do. That they also carry the world, right? And now she wasn't able, she didn't have the energy for that. She didn't have the strength to do that. She was trying to stay
Yeah.
alive. And I think it clicked for me. And I'm still like, it's a
Yeah.
long process to undo those things, to bring those wounds are so deep, right? And so now I'm like, I literally just did everything we're talking about right now. I wrote into a poem and I actually did a spoken word thing last night. And every little bit of this is in that poem that we're talking about. How I had to figure all these things out. I didn't have the father around.
Gotcha. So if a man is listening right now and they are dealing with this weight that we've been talking about, absence or in the season of losing a loved one, and they're struggling in silence, what would you say to him as we get ready to land this plane?
I'll go back to the thing I said in the beginning. Your strength is your vulnerability. And it doesn't feel like that's what it is. It feels the opposite, but it's not true. That's a lie. You have to open up to people. You have to pray, right? Another thing, have to ask for the help, whoever it's from. But I think opening up to people, finding people to, even if you have to find a professional to go talk to, then do it.
No, I agree with that. I agree. I think finding the right person to talk to is key. I think that there's some people that you can find sometimes to talk to that it felt like maybe it put you deeper into the situation, just because you have to be mindful too that, and this is just the truth of it, the situation is everybody has their own stuff going on. So the empathy and compassion that we want from a specific person, don't get mad at them if they don't show up in a way that they want you to show up at. You have to be able to accept who has been assigned for you in this season and who has the capacity and the empathy in this season to show up for you in a way that you actually need them to. So thank you, brother. You know, what you shared today obviously resonated with me. And the goal is for this to resonate with men who are walking through this season or in the season now, and they feel like they're walking alone. To every man listening, you don't have to carry it all by yourself. We hopefully gave you some framework and just context. This is just conversations. So the framework and context that you need to start to position yourself to think about how to start to navigate this season that you're in, because you do not have to carry it alone and you don't have to stay silent to be strong. That was another thing that we know, that it's not talk to, and this is just it's not talk to everybody. It's talk to the right person and to the right people. But that doesn't mean you have to stay silent to be strong. These questions are here to help create the framework for the conversation you should be having with yourself to prepare you for the man you must become when the what if happens. Because remember, it is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And the purpose of this conversation is to start asking us the questions that we need to ask ourselves, not for other people to ask us, but we need to ask ourselves so we can be prepared for the when what if happens. So before we go, I'm going to leave you guys with a few legacy prompts that I want you guys to start off with. And those prompts are, and write these down and take these through the week with you, and start off here, because these are questions that are going to start to transform the way you start thinking about just your legacy, but the man that you have to become to be able to stand in that gap. So the first one is, what weight are you carrying that no one sees? The second one is, who checks in on you really? And the third one is, what did the world teach you about being strong? Those are three questions I want you to sit with. And also too, if you guys are interested in getting more of these questions to be able to have these reflection moments with your friends or yourself, you can hit the link down in the description where you are able to check out Legacy Conversations and order these cards and have them. And this is something that you will go through. This isn't something that you just go through one day. This is something that you spend years of asking yourself and redefining, because every year of your life, you become a different person. So before we do get out of here, Dean, where can people find you? And is there anything that you want to share with the people that you want them to know in regards to the work that you do and the people that are watching this?
So you can find me on LinkedIn is a good place to connect with me. I am working in a social enterprise in Berkeley, California right now. All of our profits go to Middle East Children's Alliance, and I'm a community organizer and work in this community, different social justice issues and just community building, and that's where I'm at in the East Bay here. So that's where to find me.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys. I'm your host, Jason Brown, and I look forward to having real talks that lead to real conversations with ourselves and preparing ourselves and our families and our loved ones to be able to stand in the gap for them in our absences or when something heavy is dropped into our lap when it comes to the when, the what if. So once again, thank you guys. I appreciate you, and I look forward to connecting with you guys in the next episode.